and welcome to another episode of Nebraska Football Now. I'm your host, Andy Classen, joined by our Husker insider, Jake Bartecki. Jake, another one-score victory, kind of a gut check type of a game at home. We got it done against Northwestern.
Wasn't easy, but Nebraska got the job done, and I think it's you can almost count on every game against Northwestern coming down to one score, and that one was no different. I'll say this: I know a lot of people probably were a little worried, especially after Dylan Raiola threw that interception in the third quarter, and then they got the 2-point conversion.
Right.
I never really was concerned. I thought Nebraska, through the whole duration of the game, did a nice job dictating how the game transpired. I think they stuck to their game plan of running the ball. Emmett Johnson, another 100-yard multi-touchdown game. I thought the entire way Nebraska controlled the game, and in the end they won it.
Yeah, and you didn't feel the panic. You were down there on the sideline. Coach Rhule talked about it, and he's talked about it throughout the season. You mentioned Emmett Johnson last week, saying if we put the ball in his hands, I think we'll come away with victory. 27 carries, 124 yards, a couple of touchdowns on the ground. That's exactly how you wanted it drawn up, right?
I thought so, because I think Northwestern, what they were going to do is they were going to try and shut down Nebraska over the top, and that's what they've done to a couple other teams this season. But when you get a guy like Emmett Johnson the ball in his hands, a guy who's just, his development has been so impressive over the last few seasons, and I loved Emmett Johnson since he really had that breakout game against Purdue a few years ago on Halloween weekend. Heinrich Harburg was the quarterback. Boy, how times have changed. But I figured if you just get him the ball, he is going to do good things. And on top of that, it wasn't enough to say that you definitely have a sure-on number two. Isaiah Mosey got a couple of carries in there to take the load off as well. So Emmett Johnson's been phenomenal. Career high, 27 carries. He had a career high in yards against Maryland. And I think this was I talked to them after the game briefly as well, and I think he said, yeah, I'm always motivated. But I got the sense that the way his return home to Minnesota went, he had a little chip on his shoulder to make sure his return back to Memorial Stadium went better.
Well, another guy that really appreciates Mr. Johnson, offense coordinator Dana Holgorsen. He had some glowing remarks. Let's hear from him right now.
Yeah, I've said it. We can't keep doing that every week, but he gets stronger as the game goes on, and so when you're in tight games like that, you need to win them. You're going to go to your best players, and so he's one of our best players, obviously. So he just keeps getting stronger, and not all backs can do that. Some backs are going to get tapped out on about 12, 15 carries, and he's just not that guy. He can do about anything that we ask him to do.
Okay, yeah, just don't overcoach it, don't overthink it. Get the ball to your playmakers, right?
Right, and he admitted kind of what we were just talking about, how, look, you didn't really want that to continue the duration of the season, but I think it's probably the best piece of Nebraska's offense has been Emmett Johnson. And I think you maybe wouldn't have been able to say that at the beginning of the season. I think there was a potential because we saw how much bigger and buffer he got in the offseason. But I think a lot of people would have thought Dylan Raiola and these new wide receivers would be the big piece of the offense. Well, he said it, late in games, you got to get the ball to your best players. I think Emmett Johnson right now is Nebraska's best player. Not to take anything away from the wide receivers, because I thought, lost in the shuffle between the defense and Emmett Johnson, but Isaiah Hunter had another nice game.
He really did, and Dane Key had a couple very big, impactful plays down the stretch. This is a good problem when we're saying, Raiola is the face of the team, but Emmett Johnson's the engine. We need the receivers. Another unit that had a pretty good day, the offensive line, all things considered, only gave up one sack, limited the QB hurries, and let's be honest, they're overcoming some really tough injuries.
Yeah, so Teddy Prohaska, again, another knee injury. Yeah. I mean, you just feel for the guy, right? I mean, an Elkhorn, Nebraska native. He's a Nebraska guy. 4 knee injuries now in his time in Nebraska. I mean, and a guy that, you see him walk by, and he's just a tower.
Right.
You'd think this guy has a lot of potential, and it just hasn't worked out because of health. And Gunnar Gatula, obviously, was questionable, which was a new piece going into that Northwestern game. As of us recording right now, we're really not sure what his status is going to be for USC. But Turner Corcoran went in. I thought he played pretty well. Elijah Pritchett has gotten much better. Going to be a big test this week because this is, a team that in USC played pretty well against Michigan in the trenches, and we all remember what Michigan did in Nebraska.
It's going to be another big game for the defensive line as well. Now, I got the memo. It's going to be a blackout, right?
It is indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, you told me about this, and unfortunately, I was already halfway here by the time I had seen that you were thinking all black. But I like it. You're fitting in. I love the all black thing. I think aesthetically, I mean, like the game notes, which are behind me here somewhere, those are all black. I mean, they have leaned into it, haven't they?
Yeah.
You too.
Well, and they've just kind of following Coach Rhule and his sentiment and what he wants to say. And he was talking about when he was a coach, at the D2 level, they used to wear black shirts and kind of emulate the Nebraska defense.
Sure.
So it's kind of cool to hear those type of things. But the here and now, our defensive line has progressed throughout the season. You use the word gutsy describing the offensive line. You could say the same for the defensive line. Just enough pressure, limiting what Northwestern really wanted to do, especially in that fourth quarter when all the cards were out on the table.
Yeah, and I think they forced Preston Stone into some tough throws. And I think one of them that I go back on is I know he's a jack linebacker, so kind of an end, but Desan McCullough made a nice play where he got right in Preston Stone's face, forced a quick throw, and then Omaha North grad Donovan Jones had an interception as well, so that was great to see for a Nebraska guy. But yes, I completely agree. I thought Riley Van Poppel had some plays where he got beat, but I think when he did, he bounced right back and got back there. Elijah Judy got banged up, but I thought he played pretty well. Cameron Lenhart made some quick plays, and we've talked about it a lot, but Williams Winery, he might not show up on the stat sheet, but he wreaks a lot of havoc in the backfield when he gets to the quarterback, and there were a lot of run plays that they stopped Komolafe, not much past the line of scrimmage, and really, we've mentioned the defensive run game allowing big plays. There was the 156-yarder, but other than that, I can't really think of many big run plays that they allowed. They're
really turning into a unit that complements each other. When the defensive line applies the pressure, the defensive backs get interceptions. And when the defensive backfield can hold up and keep their coverage on, that's when we'll get a sack or a QB hurry, So very complimentary football. We got to talk, kind of the talk of the town, right? The special teams unit. What a difference. I mean, the Eckler effect, as it's been called, it's for real. And now you can kind of point to the special teams unit and say, we might have won that game because of special teams. We're not winning games despite the special teams.
Yeah, I mean, mathematically, right? Nebraska had the Kenneth Williams 94-yard kick return to start the second half to add 7 points to the board. Well, they ended up winning by 7. So, yes, special teams theoretically did win Nebraska that game. This is a unit that I think Nebraska used to really have Achilles heel problems with, and I think they'd even coach around how they could avoid using special teams. Well, now they've got one of the best kick return groups in the country. They've got one of the best punt coverage groups in the country, one of the best punt returners in the country in Ja'Cory Barney. Archie Wilson had a few bombs this weekend against Northwestern. And Kyle Cunanan, sure, he missed one in a not ideal kicking day, but all in all, you go back to Arrowhead, he had a 50-yarder earlier this season. There have been kickers in the past that Nebraska hasn't had that luxury of. This has turned in from an Achilles heel to an absolute strong, painful weapon for other teams because Nebraska's able to flip fields. I think they think if there's a problem offensively and they get backed up, the special teams has an opportunity to pin them deep with Archie Wilson. I think teams are going to have to start figuring out how to defend Kenneth Williams because he's leading the nation right now in kickoff return yards, just under 35. And now, between the Northwestern return and the Maryland return, he has 2 returns of over 85 yards. There are not many other return men in the country that can say that. So I credit Matt Rhule a lot for finding guys like Kenneth Williams, but I think a lot of the credit goes to Mike Eckler because, boy, he brings the energy every single day.
Kind of a lighthearted moment from Coach Rhule's press conference talking about Coach Eckler. Let's take a listen.
I got a bunch of people sent me the clip. There was a clip, I guess, on social media of him like walking up to me and me being like this, and people were like, "Are you and him okay?" I'm like, he's punched me. He punched me in the one game. He tackled me in another game. I said, "Don't touch me again." So I love that, but he arm's length, so that there's no problem there for anybody that's worried. He's my boy, but stay over here. So yeah, he almost got a flag last game. I yelled him in front of the whole team. That's how awesome he is. He's like, "Got it, coach."
So, I mean, that's pretty fun. That's pretty fun stuff. Getting a little too rough with the coach there, but all's good when you're performing like that as a unit.
Yeah, and that's just Coach Eckler, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he brings that kind of energy. He's intense, but, he's also one of the nicest guys I think that Nebraska has, and I think he's a leader. I've seen him at other moments, even guys that aren't necessarily on special teams. If it's Emmett Johnson, if it's Dylan Raiola, if it's, one of the other guys on defense. Yeah. He'll talk to them and give them, a pat on the back. He'll give them some critiques here and there. I mean, he is a player's coach, that's for sure.
Well, we're going to need all 3 units this week. Night game, national broadcast, NBC. USC's coming to town. A lot on the line here. Things that worry me. USC's coming off a bye, and they're also coming off a 10-point loss to Notre Dame. So they're hungry to get that victory. They also have a monkey on their back, kind of a narrative going around that USC can't play on the road, or they can't play on the road like they do at home.
Sure.
Look at the stat sheet. Look at the win-loss columns. They're 5-2. They're a really good team.
Doesn't lie.
But those 2 losses are on the road. Maybe that bodes well for Nebraska.
Yeah, and Illinois was the other one. You mentioned the loss to Notre Dame, and I think Illinois still has a lot of potential, and I think that was a tough matchup schematically for Lincoln Riley against Brett Bielema's team. But yeah, I mean, they're 0-2, right, on the road in Big Ten play and with the Notre Dame game. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough atmosphere for USC. I mean, blackout, it's going to be, I don't think, horribly cold, but it's going to be chilly compared to playing in 90 degrees in Pasadena. So that works in Nebraska's favor. But what an opportunity for Nebraska because, you're 1-7 in the month of November under Matt Rhule. You're playing on November 1st. No better way to start out the month of November in 2025. And, almost 30 straight losses to top 25 teams. You haven't beaten a top 25 team since Oregon in 2016. I think we talked about it in the past where it felt like everything lined up well earlier this season for Nebraska to finally get that monkey off their back with a top 25 win against Michigan. Yeah. I think, and I'm not saying I'm making a prediction here yet, but I think it works even better because now they've got, for USC, because the monkey's off their back in terms of getting bowl eligible. They've already lost a game to a top 25 team. They've been able to go back to the drawing board to see how they need to close the gap against a team like Michigan, against a team like USC. Yeah. We'll see if they make the right adjustments, but this is going to be an atmosphere that's going to be one to experience.
You talk about the big game, the opportunity, someone that agrees with you wholeheartedly, our starting quarterback, Dylan Raiola. Let's hear from him right now.
This is what you train for. This is what Coach Rhule and his staff have prepared us for, is winning in November, December, and January. That's the whole reason why a lot of us came here, was for games like this. And I think Coach Rhule had mentioned it to y'all yesterday maybe about a college football playoff game. You win and your chances of being in keep going and whatever. I'm not sure how it works, but that's what you do, and that's what you hope to do when you play football. And like I said, it's exciting, and for this type of game to come through, it's going to be exciting.
Well, all right, Jake. So nothing's being lost on our starting quarterback. He's aware of the opportunity at hand. One thing that worries me beyond just them having a bye week, this offense is really good, averaging 42 points per game, averaging 5.9 yards per carry. We've had trouble stopping the run defensively. There's a couple things you can point to say this might be a bad matchup for Nebraska.
Yes and no, right? Because Nebraska's pass defense is still one of the best in the country. So, yes, Jordan Maeva's awesome, right? I mean, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, he's closing in on 2,200 yards, and, he's obviously averaging 311 yards per game through the air. Those are all really impressive, but I think, this is a game where Nebraska's secondary that we've talked about in the pass defense specifically that's been so great this season, we're going to find out how good they really are. Yeah. And good receivers. King Miller's a good running back, too. The defensive line's going to have a good test, but the big matchup is going to be Maeva against guys like Andrew Marshall and Sierra Wright and Deshaun Singleton. And a huge opportunity for guys like Rex Guthrie and Donovan Jones. I mean, those are guys that, Rex Guthrie kind of beat out Marquise Buford for that spot. Those are guys that are trying to keep that job for the remainder of the season and maybe the duration of the future against other guys. If you play well against a guy like Jordan Maeva and you make life hard on him and shut down some of those receivers, John Butler, Addison Williams, Matt Rhule, they're going to take notice.
Well, another guy that agrees with you, our defensive coordinator, John Butler, talking about the progression that Maeva's had from year 1 to 2 as a starter at USC. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, you can really see that he's a smart quarterback that takes the instruction, not only through the week from the head coach and the play caller, but also in the game. They're in sync when they have to check out of a play, and he's looking to the sidelines to get the information from his staff. He gets them into the right play, whether it's checking out of a run into a pass or checking out of a run into a screen or they check everything. So they'll check a run to a run, they'll check a run to a pass to a run. So you can see when he does that, for the most part, he's doing it right. So I think he's a really good player. I think he's got more escapability than people realize because he's big and he's strong and he gets away from the rush.
Yeah, so you listen to that and you think, okay, all hands on deck. Defense will be ready to play. Jake, I ask you, will we be ready to play? Can we defend this? He's averaging 10 yards per pass, not per completion, per pass. Yeah. Insane numbers.
No, they love the big play. I mean, that's one thing that they do. But Nebraska's given up the big play on the ground. It hasn't necessarily come through the air. So I think it's going to be tough. Can they hang around with Jordan Maeva in this past game? Yes. Will they? We shall see. Because I think there's going to be some throws in there from Maeva that Nebraska just hasn't seen before. It's similar to going back to the Michigan game, where Nebraska was coming off of playing Cincinnati and Houston Christian, Akron, bye week in there as well. Well, you're going in now where you were going to get hit like you hadn't been hit before. Now it's a different scenario where you're going to be hit with some throws that you haven't had to defend before. I mean, by far the best quarterback Nebraska's faced so far. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see what Nebraska's defense draws up, but it's going to be a challenge.
A name that keeps popping up, Sierra Wright, the transfer from USC. And it was kind of his coming out party last year was the USC game where he actually started the scoring with a pick six. That was the first touchdown of the game. Do you think he's going to bring the juice once again here at home?
Oh, I think he's brought the juice every single game this season. He talked with the media, and I talked to them as well after the game against Northwestern. And Matt Rhule mentioned he's one of the best playing captains he's ever been around, and he brought that energy to going back out on the field and needing to make a stop again for the win in Big Ten play. He brings the energy every single game. You're never going to not find Sierra Wright excited to play a football game. You mentioned it, though. Pick six a year ago off Maeva, blocked field goal. Yep. We talked about special teams. This is a big game for him, but I think he's looking at it as just another game. He's going to go out there and do his thing and try to help his team win.
And this might be one of the teams that actually throws his way. That's kind of been his thing, is no one's been throwing at him. They've been working the other side of the field. All right, let's get to it. What are the Jake Bartecki keys to the game?
Yeah, we kind of jumped right into my first one right there. The secondary is going to have to show up. The pass defense is going to have to be strong for Nebraska come Saturday night. You're going to get tested. There are going to be shots down the field. You're going to see throws that you haven't had to defend this season. We'll see if Nebraska's up to the challenge. The second one, Emmett Johnson. 20-plus carries, I think, is the number for him. I don't know if Nebraska's going to have enough possessions maybe to get him to 27 again, but I'd say 20 around there, not anything less. That's kind of the ideal number. And the last one for me, this is a secondary for USC that's good, not great. I want to see Nebraska take a few shots down the field. For some reason, Dana Holgorsen has been very heavily leaning on the screen game with Isaiah Hunter, and it's worked for the most part. Yeah. But go back to the Michigan game. Nebraska got some mismatches, and they were able to hit some deep throws. Yeah. The Hail Mary's one thing, but that first touchdown that they got on the board, the deep shot to Ja'Cory Barney, that was a nice drawn-up play, and that allowed Dylan Raiola to kind of use his arm strength, which I think is there. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Maybe there's a problem in practice when he throws down the field. But if it's just the play calling is what's preventing those deep shots, let's get away from that a little bit and let's test USC's secondary.
I like that idea. I like how it sounds, right? Let the offense cook. Let our quarterback work the ball down the field. Take the training wheels off, right?
There we go.
I also am stuck between, we have injuries at offensive line, and their best thing that they can do right now, and they've shown it, is run block. Yeah. And we have the fifth best rusher in the nation. Emmett Johnson is he's the fifth best rusher yardage-wise in the nation. So do we want to just strap it up and play old school Big Ten football and just, try to run it 40 times? Give Emmett Johnson the 20-plus carries like you're talking about?
Sure.
Or are we kind of stuck in limbo here and we're going to pass on first or second down?
I think this is the opportunity, though, for you to surprise USC, right? Because I think Lincoln Riley is going to be totally expecting that kind of game plan where they're going to run the ball with Emmett Johnson 20-plus times, which they still need to do. But every so often, if you splice in a little shot down the field, you might catch USC's defense sleeping. And it's honestly something that's not on film for Nebraska very much. So that's my thinking with that one.
Okay, we're to the part of the show now. Let's get your prediction.
Well, I'm going to take USC here. 38-28 Trojans is my prediction, but this is going to be a game where people that are going to leave Memorial Stadium not upset. I think USC just top to bottom might have a little more athleticism than Nebraska at a few positions, and that's going to be the difference in the game. But I think Nebraska is going to come out and play well. They'll embrace the blackout. USC is just going to be a little better in the end.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about your prediction there, and I agree with you. I'll go, they're averaging 42 points per game. I think they're going to get their 45, 33, going to smash that over. But ultimately, USC, like you said, their offense, I think, is just too balanced. Yeah. They got a great rushing game. You think of USC and their quarterbacks over the years, and this is a good one too, of airing the ball out. They can do that, don't get me wrong, but they have a really good rushing offense too. Mentioned it, nearly 6 yards per carry. I just don't know if we can hold up. I think we're going to see a little bit of a shootout, but if the game's going to go that way, which I'm predicting it will, I think the Trojans can prevail.
Yep, and I think you're spot on with that, and you were spot on with your prediction last week. You said 27-21. It was 28-21, so let's hope you deviate a little bit from the accuracy.
Let's hope I'm off. Let's hope I'm completely wrong. Go Big Red or go Big Black this weekend.
Indeed, indeed. That'll be fun. That blackout's going to look great.
Jake, thank you for stopping by and sharing all that wonderful information with us.
You betcha.
And thank you for joining us on another edition of Nebraska Football Now.